I'm back. This is my buddy, Mr. Fields. He is having me do a bald mid taper. We didn't quite know exactly how short he wanted the sides. Now, for me, I feel like an all even is the easiest cut. Well, I guess a bald would be the easiest cut, followed by an all even. Then for me, a taper is right next to an all even for me for the easiest haircuts to do, followed by a fade, and then I'm sorry, followed by a mohawk, then a fade. As far as difficulty of doing the job that we do on a daily basis goes, I would say just shaving a person's hair bald and all even, and then a taper is probably the third easiest thing that I think we do. So, like I said, he wants his sides light. We didn't know exactly how light, so I told him I would start with the two with the grain. It is very important that you develop a conversational relationship with your client base so that they can feel empowered to give you feedback so that you can make sure that they have the best haircut experience that they could possibly have. That is one of my greatest strengths, is that I'm very conversational. I make it a point to make sure that I let my client know that I am willing to listen and I am willing to take whatever guidance that you're willing to give me. There are some clients that are like, dude, just make me look good, just cut my hair, I don't know, it's your job. There are some people like that, but more people want their opinions factored into whatever you do with their hair. So keep that in mind. I have a lot of people sit in my chair complain that the previous barber or stylist didn't listen to them, didn't ask questions. I can't believe how many people tell me their previous barber or stylist didn't even show them a mirror. They just cut their hair, asked for the money, and told them to leave. Like, that's crazy to me. But that's not really how this should work. So me, I'm constantly showing my client the mirror. Constantly asking my clients, hey man, do you want me to go higher on the fade? Do you want me to make it lighter? Like, I'm constantly asking for feedback because I feel like it's our job to make sure that we're fully hearing the client out. And most of my clients stick with me because I make sure they're heard. I listen to understand, because a lot of barbers are really, they feel like they feel like they got it all figured out and they know everything, and that's really not how you build clientele. But as you see here, this is like the third time I done showed him the mirror just to make sure we're on the same page. So we came to an agreement. We decided to go with a 1.5 against the grain. Now, at some point, I've also told him that, hey, once we do the taper, and I take the length down, if you feel like the length on the side is still a little bit too long, we can always, take it down a little bit toward the end. That would be an easy fix. But one of the reasons I asked so many questions in the beginning is because I want to know exactly what the assignment is, so that I don't do a whole damn haircut and then find out after I done spent 20, 30 minutes, perfecting a cut that the client truly doesn't even want. I don't want to end up like, putting my client in a situation, or put myself in a situation where I then gotta, do a whole nother haircut. So now, one of the toughest things to deal with a situation like this is obviously the stuff on top. You don't want to cut into that because, it took this dude several, at least a year, maybe more, to grow all that hair on top. So the last thing I want to do is go into that line. So I use my comb to take the bulk out of my way, like the long hair on top, the man bun, out of my way. Now, the way I do tapers, I first decide with the client, we consult and figure out, okay, do you want a low, mid, or high taper? Now, that's also predicated on the shape and the size and the layout of the head. For a kid like this, he's got, he doesn't have a big head, but he definitely don't have a small head. So The surface area that I'm doing the taper on him for a different person might this would be considered a high taper on a lot of people that have smaller heads or their heads are distributed a little differently. But nonetheless, I would consider this a mid taper. But I created that initial guideline with my with my clippers closed all the way, the teeth on my clippers closed all the way. I then followed up with my trimmers to completely zero that out. Now what I'm currently doing is I'm just nipping away at the corner, the bottom corner, with the bottom corner of my clippers. And every pass I make, I open up the teeth just one click more. The Babyliss clippers, they have like notches on the side, so every click is like 1/32 of an inch long, if I'm not mistaken. So it really helps you. Kind of hone in on how precise your cuts are. So I'm repeating the process back here in the bottom. I balled it out the initial guideline for the bottom. I'm about to take my trimmers and really smooth that out. Now notice with my trimmers, I don't go up to that initial guideline that I created. I go just below it, and I'm always flicking out. I always have a smooth, release, or I always pull out smoothly, if that didn't sound too perverse. Sorry for the smut, guys. But yeah, so I got that bottom line smoothed out. Now I'm gonna take my clippers and I'm gonna open the teeth. I'm gonna close it all the way, and then I open the teeth up one click, and then I flick out at the bottom of that line. I then open the teeth a little bit more. I go up a little bit higher. Now he's got most everybody has a little bit of a peak and valley in the middle of the back of the head where the neck attaches the head. So at some point you're going to see me go back over it and use the corners to kind of dig out that little spot where the neck muscles kind of dip in the middle of the head. But again, as I go up, I am constantly bringing the teeth more open, click by click. Now I have put on my zero guard and I've closed my clippers. I've closed the teeth of my clippers back, and now I'm flicking out. I think from this angle where the camera is above me and off to my right over my right shoulder. So we're at a different vantage point than I'm at when I'm cutting. So from my angle up front, I'm telling you this taper looks a lot better than it does from this camera angle, but I can assure you I put this kid in the game. But the camera angle isn't doing this one justice at this time. But yeah, so basic principle of fading. The lower part of the head and haircut is gonna be shorter than the top. I can't think of one style that's not true. So just keep in mind that as you go up in elevation, the higher you go up on the head, the longer the hair has to be. So again, I've got my clippers closed all the way. I'm gonna now take my trimmer and I'm going to eat away at that, at the bald, the bald portion of the taper. I just flick my wrist just a little bit as I pull the trimmers up and clean out the bald part. But again, I don't go up to the initial guideline, because that is not what you want to do, because all you would be doing is just bringing the guideline up. So you want to kind of manifest a fade. Now, I think this is a better angle to tell, but I'm flicking my wrist out just a little bit as I go around the tapered, faded area. I'm constantly opening up the teeth of the trimmer of the clippers as I make each pass. Now I'm going to close the clipper and put my zero guard back on, and I'm going to repeat the process. I'm going to eventually take so I put a bigger guard on this time. I closed it and I flicked away to make sure I got the hair the way I wanted it. Now at this point, I'm about to start to do the edge up. Now this guy is pretty symmetrical. When I use the term symmetrical, basically if you were to draw a line straight down the person's face, splitting the nose in half, if you were to fold one side over to the other, it would match. And he's pretty symmetrical. When I use the term asymmetrical, it means that if you were to draw that line in the middle of somebody's face, splitting the nose in half, their left side, has some variation to the right side. So, being that I've worked with this kid several times before, I don't do too much with his edge up. I know exactly what I need to do here. So, my philosophy with doing edge ups is less is more. I can always do more if I do less, but if I do too much, it's we in trouble. Now another thing that I try to make sure that I always do is I pull the ears out of the way. The ears are very sensitive, and these clippers are, when they're on, they're always cutting. And so if you don't move the ear out of the way, you can inadvertently scratch the back of the ear, and for whatever reason, the ear bleeds so much. So I do my best to avoid that. Now, when I'm doing an edge up, I usually don't do it from the front. I usually start on the side and I just edge up what I see, and I keep it as low as I possibly can. So I'm going to comb down the other side, move that ear out of the way, and I'm going to do everything I can to keep that line as straight as possible. Again, this isn't the best angle. My angle from the angle that I'm seeing the client from, this line would have been a little straighter than that. There you go. It's getting a little better. But yeah, remember, control where that ear is. Make sure you get that ear out of the way so that you don't scratch the kid up. Mothers absolutely are protective of their babies. You never want to see an upset mama bear when you done cut their kid's ear. I have to self-report. I have done it time and time again. It's never a good idea. It happens, but you want to do everything you can to avoid it. So here's what I was talking about with the edge up. I always start just on one random side. It's never always the same, but I edge them up as low as possible. I start on one side, I perfect it, and then I go to the other side. I edge it up as low as possible. Then I look at the person head on and I say, okay, are we even, or does one side need to come up? Because like I said, most people are asymmetrical, meaning not everybody is a mirror image from one side to the other. So ordinarily, there's going to be one side that you got to bring up to make it match. But he's got a pretty naturally straight edge up, so I really just try to do as little as possible to give him that straight edge up as I can. The thing about edge ups is if you do too much, as in if you take too much hair out of the way, that hair is going to grow back faster and that edge up isn't going to last as long. In addition to the fact that people have this superstition that if you bring their edge up back too far, you're going to push their hairline back and their hair is going to start to fall out in that space, which is not true. But, for whatever reason, people believe that, and that's not how you want to make, you won't make clients that way. So do your best to keep the edge up as far forward as possible. Make sure that when you are done with the edge up and the entire cut, you show the client, give them an opportunity to tweak anything or make any suggestions. For me, Speed is everything. The faster I get through a cut, the more cuts I can get through in a day, the more money I make, the more clients I can see. I mean, the name of the game is speed. You obviously want to do a good job, but a taper shouldn't take you more than 20 minutes. There are some cases where there's a lot more, shear work on top. Maybe they got a tricky edge up, but the fade itself should not take you more than 2 or 3 minutes on a side. So the idea that a taper can take you an hour, I've seen it. I worked with a guy years ago that it took him literally 2 hours on the taper. I am not exaggerating. That is not how you make money. That is not how you make friends. Keep this in mind. Your clients have things to do as well. So you never want to take more than 30 minutes on a cut. Sometimes it calls for 45 minutes depending on what they want, if they're getting a beard trim and razor edge up and like all this extra stuff. But you really want to try to get your cuts down to about 30 minutes. This cut has literally only taken about 15 minutes. Had he knew exactly what he wanted his sides to be, I mean, I'd have been done with this in 13 minutes. But yeah, again, the name of the game is speed. And again, guys, make sure you're showing your clients the mirror, giving them an opportunity to check your work and critique it to make sure it's perfect. Because what happens is if you don't give your client the mirror, the first thing they're going to do is go home and look in the bathroom. And if they go to the bathroom and see that their hair is all messed up or uneven or something, isn't the way they wanted it, one of two things are going to happen. They're either going to come back and ask that you fix it, which is going to be awkward and embarrassing, or they don't give you the opportunity to fix it and they go somewhere else and they run into a barber that will listen, will show them the mirror, and will ask for feedback. You have to let these clients give you their thoughts on your performance, because if you want those people to come back, they're going to want to make sure that you're giving them a good enough reason to come back. So now, I got a mixture of HybaCleanse, which is a medical grade cleaner, rubbing alcohol, and aftershave. I spray all my clients down after a haircut with that stuff, and then I also use Oil Sheen. Just smells good and gives them a little bit of a cleaner finish. But make sure that safety and sanitation is a priority, and make sure that your speed, customer service is